Hey, how's it going, people? This is CJ from Three Black Geeks, and I am here with Anthony Willis. He is the composer for the upcoming Knack 2. How's it going, sir?
Very well, CJ. Thank you very much. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, you wouldn't mind giving people kind of a breakdown real quick of your background and such?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a composer from England originally. I grew up actually as a singer. I used to sing in a choir in Windsor. In England, there's quite a lot of cathedral choirs. So when your voice is very high, you go off and then you have a good enough one. You go off and you sing in a choir, and that for me was amazing because I really got a sort of thorough musical training, and that's no doubt why I'm a composer now, and it's just immersed in this amazing music. So I came to LA about 7 years ago. I've been working on a lot of projects. Under bigger composers and, with some smaller films myself. So Knack really marks a big first solo project for me, and really excited to be on board and to be up to this point.
Ah, cool. So I guess the big thing that stuck out to me is, you doing Knack 2 and such. I guess, can you give people kind of a background of what Knack 2, I guess your part in what you're doing for contributing to Knack 2?
Yeah, so obviously on any video game, the score is a big part of it, and especially with some of the in-game music, the game, the music that's accompanying the player through all the levels, there's a lot of coverage needed. So I was really lucky to be brought on board to basically produce that score, which was about 2 hours of music, which is then that music, although it's only 2 hours. It can be easily expanded, especially with the gameplay music, into much longer music. But the PlayStation team do an amazing job with that, and they integrate it into the game, and we work together to kind of make sure that that's possible.
Yeah.
And then Knack itself, I don't know how much your listeners know about the original game and the character, but he's a really cool character. He how do I describe Knack? He's basically assembled of lots of relics.
Yeah.
Which means he's got kind of in himself a very kind of mysterious quality. But from a practical point of view in the game, he can grow and shrink. So he's at times very heroic, and at other times he's kind of fun and playful and kind of sweet. So in terms of the music, it was really cool to kind of be able to go in both directions with the score. Sometimes it's quite muscular and epic, and other times it's sort of more fun. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
I guess for you, when you're coming from doing movies and such, so how much of a difference is it composing music for movies, compared to video games, or is it all the same?
Very good question. There's definitely pros and cons to both. I think what's really cool about game music is you get to write an awful lot more of it. You rarely would you write, a full 2 hours of music with scores, but sometimes you do. But also you get to write gameplay music, which is generally more modular, percussive, fun, kind of groovy. But I think what I do love about films is that you get the whole film really before you start writing. At least before you start writing the bulk of the music, and that's cool because you can kind of really plan your themes. You can really plan the moments that you're going to be landing, the ultimate bad guy moment, or the ultimate good guy moment, or the ultimate love moment, and then you kind of work. At least I do. You work back from there in terms of what you need for the rest of the film. With games, it's sort of hard to know really where the music's kind of going to be used, depending on what's needed at any given moment. So that's definitely a challenge. But both have their merits for sure.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed and stuff, I don't know how accurate it is and stuff. I know you kind of helped out with the Martian soundtrack, the music for that. I actually really liked that movie. I guess how did you get onto that movie and such? Because that's a big deal.
The Martian. So The Martian was scored by a really wonderful composer called Harry Gregson Williams, who It's one of the first composers I met when I moved out here, and had been really supportive to me. And, actually he then took a sabbatical at a crucial moment that we were potentially going to work together. And then at that moment, as life has it, I was very lucky because I got to meet John Powell, who's also absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But with The Martian specifically, I think Harry needed, there were some things that he was away for, and he just needed a little bit of assistant work. So I did, a bit of arranging, but that wasn't, by any stretch a sort of major project for me. But I was very, very lucky to be a fly on the wall and kind of check it out, and see how he and really Scott worked together on that. Yeah.
Is there any kind of like pressure doing like composing for music, I guess, for, like for big movies and stuff? Because I know, you did the latest Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Jason Bourne, and being a part of Jason Bourne and some of the animated stuff. Is there any like pressure, like, man, we have to really outdo ourselves on this sequel, or is it just kind of like, well, we're just going to take it as it comes?
No, for sure. I mean, with sequels in particular, and sequels where the music, and actually you mentioned too that that are very iconic, musically. Certainly, Pirates and Jason Bourne. Like Jason Bourne, the work John did for that originally really redefined what, the way that thrillers are scored. So yeah, of course, every movie, and Pirates as well. I'd add another one to that, which was How to Train Your Dragon 2.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Which I wrote, which I was a part of, and the first movie was nominated for an Oscar. So the score was his score was nominated. So coming to that was certainly among my peers and my friends and family. You have to bring your A game for sure. So yes, absolutely. There's a pressure. I think there's a pressure on every project. I mean, whether it's a sequel or not, to deliver. And actually, sequels are amazing because you come to them, whether or not you're involved in the original or not, you come to them with a strong kind of sense of the tone from the original. So in terms of kind of finding the tone, which is always the hardest thing on any project, a lot of that work is already, done, which is, so you can kind of get to work with the music.
Yeah.
Whereas, on a fresh project, it's always a question of, what's the tone of the movie? What do the filmmakers want the tone of the movie to be?
Yeah.
And really kind of honing that in, and then still bringing your absolute best work.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, going back to, the video games with Knack 2 and such, prior to that, were you ever trying to break into doing music for video games?
Absolutely. I mean, it is my first game, but I think, as a composer, we're lucky we can really throw our hat into any kind of genre, whether it's a game, a TV show, a film, even album arranging, or for artists. There's so many different things where we can apply our skills. So I've always been open to any of those.
Yeah.
And so when Knack 2 came along, it was very exciting.
Yeah. Because you mentioned like Henry Greggs Williamson, and like it's like a couple of years ago we did a podcast about Metal Gear Solid and just loving the musical score, and we always highlighted him because it's like every game from Metal Gear that he did, it was just excellent top to bottom. So, I mean, for you, is that kind of like the impact that you want to have starting with Knack 2 in terms of like your work? Just like, hey, this is a guy that we need for this game and such.
Yeah, I mean, of course, what Harry did on Metal Gear was awesome, and I believe that, at that time, they wanted to bring a Hollywood sound to it. And I think, as far as I know, I think that's something that he's really glad that he did, and as part of his kind of arsenal and part of the profile of his career. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's very much the same. You hope that every project you do, that it resonates with people, and that they then want you for something similar or even something different moving forward.
Yeah. So for like, I guess when you starting off, when you got hired for this, I guess with the, can you take folks through the process of how you start off, like trying to build up the music for, I guess in particular for this game, like where is your starting point in terms of how you're going to go about building up the music and such?
Well, that's an awesome question. So how it normally works is, and this kind of depends on a project, because I think, some projects really lend themselves to having tunes and, being more melodic scores. Others, it's much more important that maybe this, if they're more sound designy, that in itself, the actual palette that you're working in creates the distinctive sound of the score.
Yeah.
But I think it's really a combination of finding something distinctive, whether it's through the themes, through some tunes, through some harmony that support those tunes. Something that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the harmony is a very important thing to kind of for the tone. How light it's going to feel, how heavy it's going to feel, how intense it's going to feel, how emotional it's going to feel, how beautiful it's going to feel. All of those kind of things are very much, for me anyway, rooted in the harmony, and obviously the tune is something that really goes hand in hand with that and the kind of harmony that it will imply. And then, of course, there's a palette. So, you really work at those three things and, try and find something that resonates.
Yeah. Did you have any hand into, because I remember actually when I got the email prior to the interview and stuff some weeks ago, I totally forgot that there was a Knack 2 trailer. So did you help in, I guess, crafting the music for this trailer specifically, or this is all just music from the actual game itself?
I think the trailer, certainly the trailers I've seen, unless I'm missing something, it's just a song track, which is kind of a fun song track.
Yeah.
But, it's common that, certainly in films I've done, you get kind of a hodgepodge of things. You get a licensed song that maybe the trailer ad really likes for the trailer, or the developers really like, or and then you get that peppered with little bits of score to kind of preview what that's going to be like. But certainly my score is certainly featured in some of the gameplay previews.
Okay.
And so if you play a game, the previews and some of the ones at E3, it was cool to see the score at work there.
Yeah, definitely. What was, I guess, with you doing, music composing, is there any genre of music that basically influences how you go about doing different, doing any of the projects that you get involved in, or is it it's basically just a wide swath of everything?
I'm so sorry, CJ. Can you just repeat that?
Is there like a specific, a specific genre that you kind of key in on when you're composing, or is it just basically you just get a wide swath of music that you're kind of just pulling from?
You mean any genre that I specifically like to do?
Yeah, genre that you specifically like.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think you have to. It's very interesting as an artist or a composer. On some level, you have to believe that you're going to do it in a way that nobody else will, which is why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you want to bring something of your own voice and your own passion and your own kind of take on it. But the most important thing, of course, is to find really what the film or the game, or the show or whatever you're working on needs and what's going to serve that best.
Yeah.
So you certainly have to hang up sometimes, your own comfort zone and your own set of prejudices and your own sort of likes and loves to really service especially what the director sees, for their baby, basically. Yeah. So, yes, I do have my favorites. I'd love to do, period dramas and things like that. I certainly, I think because of my kind of choral background, I definitely have a sort of good intuition for that. And musically, I think I can bring a lot to the table with that. Yeah. But no, certainly, and obviously I love animation music. I've done really quite a lot of that. So that's been a really rewarding part of my career for sure.
Ah, cool. Going back with with you in the movies and such, you had a helping hand with Birth of a Nation, and that was like a very, at least to me, I thought it was actually not bad of a movie and such, and stuff. But I did enjoy some of the musical cues they had in there. So I guess what was, that whole experience. Like, I mean, you've done prior to that. I mean, you've done some drama movie. You know, you were on some movies that required some dramatic music and such. So, what was that like going into that movie in particular?
Birth of a Nation was a very special project for me, and I was very sad to see ultimately what happened to the film, which is it went from being really the talk of the town to, and a lot of people have criticized the extent to which it was praised when it was first screened at Sundance, and famously a lot of people have told me that the standing ovation was before the movie was played, which I honestly don't know the details of that. But I worked closely with Nate Parker and Henry Jackman, who's the main composer on that, and I wrote a lot of additional music. And I really, it was a really special moment in my life. Actually, I really, I think it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't a perfect movie, but it certainly had some really great messages in it. And so musically, I think, in general, that's the amazing thing about getting to write music for films, is that you bring the best music you can to support and give life to that, to what you're writing on. But then that music itself, once you get that right, or if you get that right, or if you get that close to right, the project that you're working on gives that back to the music in a way that it never, it has a meaning that it never would have. So when I listen to the Birth of a Nation music, I think of the film. Yeah. And I think that's a really cool thing about writing on these projects. Yeah. Because otherwise, what would it mean? So no, that was a very special experience, and I was sorry for Nate what happened, in spite of whatever had happened in his past. Oh yeah. I was very sorry how that went.
Yeah. Actually, this is another one that because a lot of people that direct movies and stuff, whether it's good or bad, they always get the criticism that comes with it from somebody somewhere. So, has there ever been a time as a composer, or if have you ever had any criticism that might have been pointed towards, I guess, the music of a movie, and you felt some sort of way, or did you just kind of take the criticism like, okay, well, maybe I need to improve on this, or or you just kind of ignored it?
That's an amazing question. Do you know what? I probably have not heard even 10% of the criticism that has been made about the work I've done, or people might not even knowing, it was me that was doing it, or who, what it was that was annoying them, or even they just didn't like the film, or they found the music annoying at that moment because they were in a bad mood, or they just, their friend had just told them that all orchestral music was terrible and that it should all sound like The Social Network, or, I think we as people were very prone to criticize. Yeah. That said, we come at every project with that in mind, and we certainly, really do our best to service the film and make the music good and represent ourselves well, where it's possible. So, but I think there are times where, and a lot of people in the process of making a film or a game have different opinions about how something should be. Yeah. And so you always just try and bring your best. But yeah, I've no doubt there's been a lot of criticism for everyone. I mean, I've been around, friends of mine criticizing things about things they don't really understand or they don't know, but they're entitled to their opinions because they're an audience member. Yeah. And it's very important to remember that, like, the audience is the king. Yeah. In what we do. So, it's a tough thing. I think you can't let it get to you. I mean, I'm not at the point in my career yet where there's a huge amount of kind of online content for a lot of the projects that I've done, and whereas obviously, all the composers have 20 years of soundtracks out there that I'm sure they look back now on YouTube and there's all these comments and things like that. I mean, what I find hilarious about looking at soundtracks on YouTube is you get a couple of different kind of comments. One, you get, "Oh, I just love this movie. It's the best movie I've ever saw. Oh my gosh, I watch it every day," and cry. And you get those kind of people who I love because I think, but have never have anything to do with the track that's on the soundtrack. Yeah. And then you get people, and sort of you get people who kind of go off into like random conversations about something even less related to the movie, or something maybe about what the movie was based on. And then you get people who actually talk about the score. So it's a mixed bag. I think that would be dangerous to get lost in the black hole of YouTube comments.
Yeah, because I'm always curious about that, because it always feels whenever there is criticism about a movie, the music doesn't really, and maybe that's kudos to how the movies are, where it's just like nobody really cares to criticize the music so much as the product of the movie. Because it's like whenever I've heard somebody criticize the music about a movie, it's when the movie is so good and it's like people are finding something to criticize, and it's like, man, y'all really just got on the music even though the movie's good? I don't get this, but yeah.
I guess that's the thing. There's always something to criticize, and I think there's a difference between criticizing. We do a different kind of criticism when we're in the process of making a film than should be done maybe in the kind of experience and enjoyment of watching the film. So when you're in the process of making something, your brain is kind of programmed to constantly critique, and the more things you get right, as you said, the easier it is to maybe see some of the other faults.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I guess people's minds are just wired to latch in on something. Oh, well, I really enjoyed the movie, but the music was annoying, and there's so many things that, I actually just took a flight from London back over, and I was just over for a quick trip, and I'd forgotten my good headphones that I normally watch films on, and so I was just watching on the Virgin headphones that they have there, and it was, the sound is terrible, and you kind of hear it, and I like to think I know a little bit more what to listen to when it comes to the score in terms of just assessing it from how it was built.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it, and I'm listening to what actually gets through in that situation.
Yeah.
What makes it through to an audience member. And I'm always a bit like, gosh, I mean, you just never know. Never know what people quite hear. I mean, it is something that sometimes is very quiet, sometimes is too loud. Rarely is it too loud. I'll say often it's far too quiet. And a lot of the time it's actually just great. Some of the guys, they do an amazing job on the dub at just getting the music to exactly that level where, it fills you with emotion, but it's not overbearing.
Yeah.
But anyway, on that thing, I mean, again, I think you just got to try and put your best foot forward and, go for it. It's true, though, that directors, they do get they really bear the kind of full impact of the movie on their shoulders, for sure.
Yeah. Is there ever a genre, of like video games that you ever want to like compose? If you had to really like pick a genre that you want to compose music for, what would it be?
I mean, I love anything that's magical with choirs and mystery, and I'm not somebody who's necessarily the best guy for doing like the darkest thing you've ever heard, where there's an apocalyptic invasion.
Yeah.
But I do love things that are enchanting and things that are magical, mysterious. There was a beautiful game, Ori and the Blind Forest, that came out a couple of years ago that I thought was really beautiful.
So. Oh, cool. So, do you have any upcoming projects that people need to know outside of Knack too? Obviously.
Upcoming projects.
Yeah.
I've got there was a film that I scored at Sundance last year called LA Times, which is a really fun. It's actually based in LA. And it was written and directed and stars a very talented lady called Michelle Morgan, who's really brilliant, and she's also hilarious. And so that was kind of, it's sort of romantic comedy, but I don't know if I get in trouble for this, but Michelle would probably describe it as sort of Woody Allen meets Wes Anderson.
Okay.
So there's some really quirky stuff, but there's also some kind of quite sweet, sort of sweeping romantic stuff, which I really enjoyed doing. And so that's coming out in the fall. And then I think fingers crossed, I'll be doing a little bit of additional music on Han Solo.
Oh, nice.
Under the amazing John Powell. So that's going to be Very exciting.
Part of the Star Wars franchise now.
Yeah. So these projects are amazing because each one you learn a whole new set of skills. So that's going to be very cool.
Sounds exciting. Get to work with Ron Howard too, so that's a big
deal.
deal.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a trouble production, but yeah, no, I think that's going to be certainly like a real life highlight. But I'm definitely at the point where I'm really pushing for my own projects, and I do have a project that is in the works for after Han Solo, which I can't quite talk about yet, but I'm very excited about that as well.
Cool.
Which will be just me. So.
All right. Well, appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, talk to our podcast, talk to me and such.